You're listening to Women in Wellness, a program to help you create gorgeous growth for your blissful business in health and wellness. I'm Dr. Gabby, holistic health expert and founder of Women in Wellness, a one-of-a-kind course and community designed to empower and inform you about how to build a purposeful and profitable holistic business. I'm so excited for today's interview. I have a wonderful guest, Jessica Drummond. Jessica is the founder and CEO of Integrative Women's Health Institute. She has over a decade of experience as a physical therapist and owns a private women's health clinical nutrition and coaching practice. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Gabriella. It's so great to be here.
I know. I feel very lucky because first we connected online and you were kind enough to have a conversation with me about your institute, and then we got to meet in person finally last month. So that was really fun. I was excited about your work from the get-go when I found out about what you're doing. For those of us who are listening that don't know about the Integrative Women's Health Institute and how and why you do that, can you share a little bit about the background for us?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a story that started with my own career journey and then kind of intersected with my own physical journey. So I started my career as a physical therapist in orthopedics, and pretty quickly I began to specialize in women's health after working with some post-breast cancer patients, working with a lot of pregnant women with back pain. And so, from about year 2 or 3 after I graduated from graduate school, I started exclusively working in women's health. And I worked with then a lot of very complicated pelvic pain clients and patients. And, at that time, so this was probably in the early 2000s, like 2003, 2004. And these women, we didn't know nearly as much as we know now about pain. They had been through lots of surgeries and doctor to doctor, and nobody knew how to help them. And so, but physical therapy was kind of coming on as a really useful tool for helping pelvic pain. And, I did a lot of other things too in women's health. And then after the birth of my first daughter, so my oldest was born in November of 2003, I started having all these vague symptoms. Like I was fatigued and I got colds and flus all the time. And, I started having anxiety and panic attacks, and everyone's just like, oh, you just had a baby, you're tired. But this went on for years. And then it was like, oh, well, you just need an antidepressant, and none of that worked. And then it progressed and progressed, and I had really severe insomnia, and I was exhausted to the point of really complete physical burnout. Like there were days when Claire, my oldest, was about 4 or 5, like I could barely get out of bed. I was so physically exhausted. And finally I found a functional medicine doctor who figured out that I had, essentially HPA axis dysregulation. At the time we called it adrenal fatigue. And I realized that because that has so much to do with the whole endocrine system, that if I could learn to, first I learned to heal myself out of complete necessity. But then, I was curious about, and I actually took several months off of work at that time and just survived. And then I was like, well, let me bring this newfound nutrition wisdom and functional medicine wisdom back to my pelvic pain practice. And I did that for a while, kind of integrating the two and going back to school and learning. And then right after the birth of my second daughter, so the other thing I had was secondary infertility. My girls are 7 years apart because I couldn't get pregnant in between because my hormones were such a disaster, and I didn't know it. No doctors knew it that I saw. And so then once I got healthy, I had a second baby, no problem. And after that, I started around that same time, a little before, a little after, I started my health coach and nutrition practice, and continued to really focus in this area because I felt like, particularly for women with pelvic pain, pregnancy, we weren't combining all of the tools that we had from a, lifestyle medicine, nutrition, exercise, physical medicine to really address these concerns more holistically. So I started the Institute, and I started working with patients first and clients for a couple of years. And then I started training other professionals really in full force about 3 or 4 years ago now. And I do a lot of that now. We do a ton of professional training. I travel. In fact, I'm going to England in about 3 weeks to teach, and I teach all over the world. And then we also have the clinic. Now I have 2 other nutritionists and health coaches who work with me, and we've started doing both group coaching and private coaching for clients. So really the why is that I felt like no one yet was putting this all together, first for the professional, so that we could understand to start thinking this way, so that women weren't bounced from professional to professional, or if they were, because I think it's still essential sometimes to have a team, that the team communicates and understands each other and, is more open to this whole woman care, rather than really kind of breaking clients up into little specialized pieces. So that was really my mission, was to spread this kind of epiphany that I had as a result of my own healing journey.
That's a beautiful story. I hear the same kind of story, different journeys, but similar kinds of stories with most healers and health practitioners. It was some challenge they faced, or a close family member, or a daughter or son or something like that, that really ignited the passion and excitement about being in this space. So for you, you found that really nutrition was a big part of healing your hormones. Is that right?
Absolutely. And my functional medicine doctor was great, but she had kind of a limited, and I think also it was just because of how long ago it was, understanding of exactly what to do nutritionally. So I tried a lot of different things, and, I was eating like raw egg smoothies at first. Like, I would try anything. When you're desperate like that, you just you eat like whatever, bone marrow straight from the bone, like you get a little crazy. And some of it was useful, some of it was not. But then I began to more I did it kind of as a personal experiment. And then in the intervening years, much more of an academic path. But all of it's valuable, really, because the more you physically experience, the more it's easy to bring it to your clients. So I found that nutrition was vital, and not just nutrition, this other lifestyle medicine stuff that we often just overlook, circadian rhythms, sleep, right size exercise. When I had significant adrenal fatigue, my sleep was awful. And so every night after work, I was traveling, my husband was traveling, we were living near my parents, I had this young daughter. I was swimming and swimming and swimming to try to just exhaust myself so I could sleep. Well, that was a terrible thing to do. But at the time, if you looked at the literature, it was a great idea. And so sometimes, you really have to individualize and personalize all parts of this kind of lifestyle medicine, stress management. We were talking about before, deciding what things to have on your plate, what things to have off your plate in a really deliberate manner, because we can do so many things. And especially after I had my girls, there were things about my life that I had to shift. And that, I think, is probably even more important than the nutrition, but both are very important.
How do you make those shifts and make your life manageable? I mean, I talk to so many people that feel like there's not enough time, or there's just so much overwhelm. What strategies did you use to make it manageable?
I think that's really you have to think of it really as like a daily practice. Step one, you have to, if you're going to do a lot, I do a lot. I have 2 children, one's 12, one's 5. My husband still travels a lot for work. I run this company. I try to volunteer when I can at school and things like that. And so, and by the way, I'm in a doctoral program. I have to take 4 classes this semester. So yeah, I'm actually off until Monday, so I've forgotten about that. It's put on the side. But the way I do that is I really do it one thing at a time. And that's really hard. But it develops with practice, because what you really have to do is not be worrying about anything else while you're doing the thing you're doing now. Like right now, I'm here with you, we're having this conversation, it's great. I could be worried about like, oh my gosh, school starts next week and I better start getting ahead and reading what I'm going to have to read. And oh my gosh, how are my kids today? They're off in their second day of school. I hope everyone's fine. Honestly, I just expect that everything that I'm not working on in this moment is fine. Either someone else is dealing with it or whatever. And that is a practice. It's essentially mindfulness in action. I call it micro balance. Like there's no such thing as like balance. There really isn't. But I think you can kind of moment by moment by moment make choices. And then when you are feeling the overwhelm, because that does happen. I mean, knowing that this is the last semester I have to take all these classes, it's like, okay, I'll be done with this in 4 months. Then what else can I strip away? Because a lot of times it's all about what we have decided to take on, and who else can I delegate things to? And you start to get really strict about how you'll spend your time.
Do you ever struggle to say no to things or to delegate things?
Yes, absolutely. I'm getting better. I think hiring my team is fantastic now, which took a while. Sometimes you hire people and they can't really do what you think they can do. So that's been good, kind of getting to the level of having a team that I can trust. My kids are a little older. It's a lot harder when they're tiny babies. 12 and 5, there's a lot they can do to take care of themselves. I mean, my 12-year-old does the dishes, does a lot of the laundry. When I have nighttime calls, she puts her little sister to bed. I get help in that way. But it does take some trust. It also takes one of my friends was saying, oh, I could never let my kids load the dishwasher. They'd crack all the dishes would all be chipped. Well, I'll tell you, my dishes are all chipped. I think 100% of them. But I don't care because my 12-year-old mostly does the dishes. And so you have to let go of some things to be able to delegate, which, you have to let go of perfectionism.
Yeah, it sounds like a very real, honest approach to things.
Yeah, I mean, there's no choice. This is my actual life.
Right. And when you built the Integrated Women's Health Institute, you built that mostly online, right? You were going around and talking about it, but it was delivered online 100%, right?
Well, at first, actually, I did it all live. My first year in health coach practice, my first year, I was living in Houston and, I was taking some of it to the clinic, but that was I was still working in hands-on pelvic floor physical therapy, and I was kind of educating people differently. But then I started to take on some health coach clients, and I would actually go to their houses and look at what's in their kitchen and things like that. So I did that for a while. And then I built a house that had a new big office. We had reclaimed wood floors. It was gorgeous. We were going to do yoga in there. But I lived in Houston and I had a new baby and there's a lot of traffic there. And I started offering my clients the option of just calling me. Well, needless to say, I lived there for a year. We never had a soul come to that office. They were all like, I can just call you from work for an hour? Fantastic. I don't have to get in my car? Great. So it just evolved that way. So I started doing all of my client care by phone. And then similarly with the professional education, I built it all the first time by teaching it live. The first year I taught live in Houston and California and New Jersey and London and Ireland. I flew all over the place and taught it live, just to get feedback, just to get that experience. And that was the first course, the pelvic pain course and the health coaching course. And since then, we're probably in version 4.0 now. But since then, I realized it was unsustainable for me to fly everywhere. And so we built it entirely online. And we've been doing it online since early 2014. And
is that a different kind of way of working for you to be doing stuff online? Because I started doing massage therapy and doing everything face-to-face, and then transitioned online. And I feel like it's a different experience. Day-to-day is different. The relationships are different. Do you have that feeling?
Absolutely. I did hands-on pelvic floor and orthopedic physical therapy for about 12 years before I did anything virtually at all. And so, yes, first of all, physically it's different. You're kind of sitting at your computer, you're on your phone. That's challenging. Also, working from home is challenging because you're always, I could literally be always working. There are probably years where I, don't take a full day away from my computer. Now I'm working on that now because that is not good. But so that part of it is different. The physicality, I used to like have hands on people, one person at a time. For the teaching, it's also a little bit different because when I'm live teaching at a conference, you get immediate feedback from people. In fact, this is my second week doing it. I just did my second one, Facebook Live. I actually love that because you finally
ask questions.
Get a little you get someone liking a thing. You're like, okay, good. That landed, because sometimes, not most of the time, because we do teach a lot of our webinars live, but it's still voice over PowerPoint. People are at their own house. You don't have that community that you have in a room. So I'd like to do 4 or 5 live events per year. We're doing a live event in New York in December. So we've got some connection. That's the first one we're hosting. I'm going to that conference in October. A lot of times I'll fly to professional conferences. I like to do that a few times a year to get that connection. Because on a day-to-day basis, I live in this 10 by 10 office or my house or something. Sometimes I go to New York City.
I know.
But it's a minimal, yeah.
I think there's an illusion because a lot of the women that I coach, they see the sort of Instagram version of being an online entrepreneur where I don't know, you're just drinking lattes, you're at hipster coffee shops, or I don't know what you're doing. But
I'm not doing that.
No, right? I feel like that's not really accurate, and I can find myself working 24/7 too, because it's so easy. I'll walk upstairs with my phone and then I'll be working on my phone because it just follows you that way. So I think that's something that needs to be a bit more transparent with this online business stuff.
Oh yeah. I started turning my Wi-Fi off at night. 8:30 at night, the Wi-Fi is off. For me and my kids, because they're, 12-year-olds are obsessed with their phones. But yes, I don't know that I've ever actually worked in a hipster coffee shop because how can you trust the Wi-Fi connection, right? So yes, I do like about working from home a couple of key things. One, even though I work a lot, my schedule is 100% determined by me. So there's a lot of benefit to that, even though it is kind of 24/7. If I want to go to volunteer for something at the school, if I want to make sure I get my kids off the bus at 3:00 or whatever, you have that space. If I physically don't feel particularly great, I can just go outside for a little bit and lay in my garden, go take a nap, not always if I have meetings, but you've got space in your schedule, especially if you plan it in advance, to manage your own time. And I do like that. It helps me sort of stay in my own physical flow. But I think part of why I have to do some of that now is because it is kind of draining to be working with your computer all the time. So, yeah. And I almost never I'm sitting on the beach with my computer or anywhere that you see on Instagram.
Yeah, on some Greek island.
Right.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so for those who are listening, who would be an appropriate fit for you for the Health Institute? Is that great for mostly physical therapists, or is it a health coaching program? Who would benefit from taking those courses?
Yeah, the professional training programs are designed primarily for health coaches, fitness professionals, physical therapists, and nutritionists, dietitians. We do have some naturopaths, some acupuncturists, nurse midwives. So essentially all of the allied health and wellness folks that are focusing on women's health. We have some massage therapists, yoga teachers. That is our community.
That's awesome. Okay, so if they want to find you, if they want to study with you, if they want to post on Instagram with you, how do they do that?
The Institute website is integrativewomenshealthinstitute.com. I'm more on Facebook than Instagram. I do have a private or, personal Instagram page. We have a Institute Instagram page, but I'm honestly not that committed to it. But my personal one is jessrdrummond.com, I believe.
And you're doing Facebook Lives now, right? So they can find you doing that?
Better to find me on Facebook. We're on Facebook a lot. So it's Integrative Women's Health Institute. That's the professional page on Facebook. I do Facebook Lives every Friday. So if you want to interact, I would love it, because finally I get to get out of my office just a little. Yeah, so that's really the best place, Facebook Live or through the website.
That's awesome. I love what you're doing, and I'm so grateful that you spent some time with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure. I love everything you're doing and the energy around it, and this is really, really fun.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. You can join the Women in Wellness Club at women-in-wellness.com.